Have you ever paused to ponder what it truly means to have a right that's yours regardless of where you're from, what you believe in, or who you are? Imagine a world where every individual, irrespective of their nationality, ethnicity, gender, or religion, has certain fundamental rights and freedoms. These are the rights that are universally inherent, inalienable, and indisputable, such as the right to express oneself freely, the right to associate, to work, and many more. These are what we call human rights. The Western perspective, for instance, understands human rights as inherent and inalienable to all irrespective of cultural or traditional differences. It's a universalist approach that seeks to provide these rights to all humans transcending cultural or traditional boundaries. However, the Eastern perspective offers a different lens. Human rights in this context are not just abstract legalistic principles but are intertwined with religious and social and cultural norms. They have been practiced through various customs and traditions since ancient times. The Western view leans more towards the universal application of these rights, often overlooking cultural nuances. On the other hand, the Eastern perspective values the cultural context in which these rights are practiced, emphasizing that human rights cannot be divorced from the society in which they are implemented. To encapsulate human rights are fundamental rights and freedoms that belong to every individual, irrespective of their nationality, ethnicity, gender, religion, or any other characteristic. Next, the dimension of human right. The dimension of human rights includes extracts of judgments, reports and opinions of international supervisory organs and domestic judicial tribunals, as well as the work of scholars in this subject. There are 5 dimensions of human rights: civil, political, economic, social and cultural rights, which cannot be viewed as separate from but complement each other. Let's begin by exploring the definition of civil. The term has multiple meanings. In its simplest sense, it refers to being cultured and polite, signifying someone who is considered civilized. The second term is political. Politics is the process through which individuals residing in communities reach decisions. It involves the negotiation and establishment of agreements among people to facilitate coexistence in groups, whether they be tribes, cities, or countries. The third term is economics. It constitutes the examination of scarcity and its consequences on resource utilization, the creation of goods and services, the expansion of production and well-being over time, and a diverse range of other intricate matters crucial to society. The fourth term is social. In essence, being social signifies a preference for being in the company of others. The term social originates from the Latin word socius, which means friend. The final term is cultural rights. These rights safeguard the entitlements of each individual, both independently and in collaboration with others, as well as those of various groups, to cultivate and articulate their humanity, worldviews, and the significance they attribute to their existence and progress. The principles of human rights are based on the idea that every individual is entitled to certain fundamental rights and freedoms by virtue of being human. These rights are considered inherent, inalienable, and universal, applying to all people regardless of factors such as race, gender, religion, or nationality. The concept of human rights is often enshrined in international documents and treaties. Here are some key principles. Universality. Human rights apply to all individuals worldwide, regardless of their nationality, ethnicity, or other characteristics. They are considered universal and inalienable. Inalienability. Human rights are inherent to every person and cannot be surrendered or transferred. No one can give up their human rights, even if they wish to do so. Indivisibility. Human rights are interconnected and interdependent. Civil and political rights, such as freedom of speech, are intertwined with economic, social, and cultural rights, such as the right to education or health. Equality and non-discrimination. Human rights are to be enjoyed by all people without any form of discrimination. Everyone is entitled to the same rights and protections. Theories of human rights. Natural rights theory holds that human rights are universal and inalienable because they are derived from human nature and dignity. Key thinkers include John Locke, who argued that everyone has natural rights to life, liberty, and property. For liberal theory, this Enlightenment-era approach views human rights as protections for the individual against abusive power. Thinkers like John Stuart Mill emphasized civil and political rights like free speech, assembly, due process, etc. Liberal rights theory strongly influences documents like the UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Critics contend liberalism does not do enough to ensure substantive equality and social and economic rights. Utilitarians like Jeremy Bentham argued rights derive from utility, what brings happiness and avoids pain. Rights can be overridden for the greater good. John Stuart Mill tempered this view with his harm principle, which limits state infringement on individual liberties. Critics argue utilitarianism can justify violating rights of minority groups for the majority benefit. Communitarian theory. This view holds that rights emerge from shared values in a society. Rights seek to balance individual freedoms with social duties and the common good. Feminist thinkers argue that human rights theory traditionally reflects male perspectives and neglects women's concerns. They advocate for the inclusion of rights like reproductive freedom, equal pay, freedom from violence, etc. Feminists argue human rights theory has traditionally privileged male perspectives and ignored women's oppression. Law of nature and the law of rights. The law of nature versus the law of rights. Hegel. Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, a German philosopher of the 19th century, explored the relationship between the law of nature and the law of rights in his philosophical works, particularly in his Philosophy of Right. The law of nature refers to the state of existence where individuals are driven by their subjective wills and desires. It represents a more primitive and unorganized form of social order. Law of rights. The law of rights, on the other hand, is a higher stage of ethical development according to Hegel. It emerges as a result of the dialectical progression of history and the development of human consciousness. Dialectical method. One of the central features of Hegel's philosophy is his dialectical method. This method involves a process of thesis-antithesis-synthesis. It begins with a thesis, which represents a particular idea or position. Absolute idealism. Hegel is often associated with absolute idealism, which posits that ultimate reality is fundamentally mental or spiritual and that the material world is a manifestation of the absolute idea or spirit. In other words, everything is interconnected in the realm of the absolute idea. Historical development. Hegel believed that history is a rational and purposeful process driven by the unfolding of the absolute spirit. He saw history as a progressive development of human consciousness and freedom, with each stage of history representing a higher form of self-awareness. Freedom and the state. Hegel's political philosophy emphasizes the significance of the state in realizing individual freedom. He argued that individuals achieve their true freedom through participation in a well-ordered state. Absolute spirit. The culmination of Hegel's philosophical system is the concept of the absolute spirit. This represents the highest level of reality and the ultimate truth or absolute knowledge. It encompasses all forms of human knowledge, including art, religion, and philosophy. His philosophy remains significant as it continues to influence contemporary philosophical thought. What is secularism? Secularism, in the context of human rights, refers to the principle of separating religious institutions from the affairs of the state. It emerged to separate religious influence from state affairs, promoting decisions based on reason and humanist principles rather than religious doctrine. It empowers individuals to express beliefs without state interference, safeguarding basic human rights. This principle ensures religious freedom, non-discrimination, and the right to non-religious beliefs. However, when religious groups seek special privileges, secularism's neutrality can erode. Secularism and humanism are intertwined, shaping a society where all beliefs coexist while protecting individual rights. Humanism is a worldview based on philosophical theories of reason and kindness. The most common definition of secularism is the separation of religion from civil and state affairs, and can be extended to similar positions that seek to eliminate or minimize the role of religion in the public domain. Secularism should be an ideology mainly applicable to the civilian class, which can better demonstrate the basic human rights of civilians. Humanism draws inspiration from benevolent human nature and guides it through rational reasoning. Humanism is based on rational reasoning, and its basic values are kindness and love. Humanism should be an ideology that must be followed by leaders of the leadership class. This is more conducive to the leadership ensuring the basic human rights of every civilian. How secularism and humanism act as the foundations to the idea of human rights in the modern era. To a humanist, a secularist society is one in which there may be religions, but the state takes a neutral view with respect to religion. It protects the freedom to believe, worship, express religious commitments, and the freedom not to believe, etc. Humanism and secularism. Look at what a secular society would be like and analyze in which the secular character of a society can be eroded is if the religious begin to insist their particular religious views are deserving of special, institutionalized systems of privilege. Enome. For example, Europe's transition involved significant migration and diverse populations collaborating for work. However, societal norms shifted towards individual gain, creating a state of enome, as Durkheim described. Merton expanded on this, showing how a disconnect between societal goals and means leads to responses like conformity or rebellion. How does this relate to human rights? Enome, characterized by a lack of norms, threatens human rights. Establishing strong legal systems and social norms is crucial to prevent violations. This underscores the need for justice, equality, and global efforts to protect human rights by involving individuals, governments, and international organizations. Society's norms and human rights are interlinked. Without norms, human rights are at risk. Anomie and its relation to human rights. Human rights and anomie are two different concepts. Human rights refer to the basic rights that individuals enjoy in society, such as freedom of speech, freedom of religious belief, and the right to life. Anomia refers to the lack of clear social norms and constraints on the behavior of social members, resulting in a loss of authority of social norms, and people will take illegal means to achieve their goals. Although human rights and anomie are two different concepts, there is a certain relationship between them. In a society devoid of norms, human rights are vulnerable to violations. Therefore, the establishment of a sound legal system and social norms to protect people's basic human rights is an important means to prevent the occurrence of anomie. In conclusion, human rights are the inherent entitlements we possess simply by being human. They embody equality, justice, and dignity for all without being granted by any authority. Violations occur daily, from religious persecution to racial discrimination, highlighting the continuous need for vigilance and action. Upholding human rights is not solely on governments but on every individual. International bodies like the United Nations work to protect these rights, yet our collective effort is crucial. They form the foundation of a fair society, fostering freedom, justice, and peace. Stories like Rosa Parks and Malala Yousafzai's showcase the transformative impact of human rights. It's our shared responsibility to respect, protect, and promote these rights for present and future generations. Human existence is defined not just by being, but by safeguarding these inalienable rights.